It's my distinct honor and privilege to introduce our next presenter. What most of you probably know about her is that she has been a long-time mountain guide, year-round, throughout much of the world. She lives over in Teton Valley. She's worked for Jackson Hole Mountain Guides, Exum Guide. She's a long-time Avalanche educator. Maybe a decade ago, she found her calling. In my view, 15 years ago, the time just goes. She's the editor of the Avalanche Review. Another plug for it. If you haven't signed up for it, it's really amazing. It's the publication of Avalanche professionals. But there's something else I want to tell you about her. There she is. There's a study done a couple years ago about mentorship in the United States in the avalanche industry, and she made the top 10 list. In fact, she made number 7 as someone who was mentioned the most in our industry as one of the most influential and greatest mentors in our tribe. You can see Lynne right there. In fact, there's a few people in this room here that are on that list. Dale Atkins and Don Sheriff, certainly. Rod Newcomb. Yeah. He's still out getting animal crackers, it looks like. But there's something else. I should say, is that if you get her contact information, we can push her over the top to be number 1 on that list of mentors. So there it is. Those are authentic, by the way. But there's something else. Last November, Lynne found a lump in her breast. And for many people, the world would stop at that moment. And she went through the ringer, man. The whole 9 yards. All through the winter, all through the spring, and all through the summer. And something for her in the summer was to sign up for and compete in this Pierre's Hole mountain bike race, 50K. And that lady, damn it, she was on the podium. 50K. I'm almost done. When she went up to pick up her packet, you go to the race and you pick up your packet, the race director looked at her and said, Lynne, I'm so glad you're here. And she paused and said, yep, it's pretty important for me to be here. Lynne, it's pretty important for you to be here. Please help me extend a warm welcome to Lynne Wolfe.
All right, that's enough of that. Thanks, you guys. At this point, I would say that I am both good and lucky. So, okay. It's kind of hard to give a presentation when you're kind of about to burst into tears. But I'm going to be talking about debriefing. And this is not us up here taking our pants off, but this is what we do. This is what we do after a day of skiing. And I'm going to be talking about debriefing through a close call that I had in the Tetons. What was that? January in 2012. And where's Fitz? Fitz, get in here. He had to go to the back row, so I wouldn't pick on him. Yeah, so, close call on the Tetons. So, of course, all good presentations start with a couple of graphs. And Here we are looking at our snowpack in November of 2011. And really what you need to take home from this is that we got heavy over week. Have you guys been there before? Yeah, we've had this before. So heavy over week. And if you haven't seen these before, we do these in Excel, and Patrick Wright's going to talk about this later. They do them on the Bridger Teton website as a snow tracker program. And so it's a look at November 2011, and you can see the storms. And then you can see we got some snow, and then the temperature dropped through the bottom. Lows of 7, lows of 4. So what's going on with our snowpack? Anybody? What's going on with the snow that's on the ground when we have thin cover and low temperatures? I'm not going to go on until somebody tells me, Zent. Faceting, nice job. I almost put you on the spot there, Zenny. So, yeah, so we've got some faceting. Whoa! And that's what it looks like. Yeah. So then we get a little bit of snow on top of that, and so what do we have? We've got a bad basement with some slab on the top. And then of course, what happens in December? We've got faceting, we've got surface hoar, a delightful mix. Okay, I've got a lot more pictures of that, but you're not going to get to see them. And so December, couple of storms, and look at our temps, -7, low of 7. There's the surface hoar, there's the faceting, and then what happens right around New Year's? We got a storm, and of course our avalanche hazard bumps way up through the roof. And so here's our late December, New Year's storm on top of this mess. We get this one. Anybody remember this one from Romeo's site going up Wimpy's? Whew. Okay, and then here we have January, and this is right where we left off, that New Year's storm, and things are starting to settle out. Temps are kind of moderate range. Get another big storm right here from like the 20th through the 24th, and of course our hazard bumps back up again. And Jamie of YDOT shared some of these pictures with me from the helicopter, across the Beaver Slide, and I kind of have a thing for these snow movers. You can see these pictures. That's a dirty little secret. Next thing I know, Fitz will be getting me to drive one of them. And so this is kind of interesting. This is really a bunch of bad pictures, but really what I'm trying to show you is here we are down at the mid-elevations. So the Duets is there's a bunch of avalanches, small avalanches on the surface hoar in the trees. And so Fitz and Trevor and I are trying to figure out, well, where are we going to go skiing on the 24th? And Fitz says to me, there is no way in the world that I'm going into Mail Cabin. Mail Cabin's way too dangerous. And so we're like, okay, where should we go then? How about up on the shoulder of the south face of Taylor? You guys remember this story? So yeah, up we go on the south face of Taylor. Here's the forecast for the day. It was before we started to use the avalanche problems, and so Comey and the folks have rated it considerable, moderate, and they do mention that the sloughs could trigger deeper slabs and result in large, dangerous avalanches, especially as the sun starts to come onto things. So we're like, okay, yeah, we'll go up early and get her done, as Lori Zacharuk would say. And so what do you guys think? What are our avalanche problems for the day? What are we looking at? It's a few days after that big storm. So I'm not that concerned. Oh, geez, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Not that concerned with wind slab and storm snow. I think it's settled out. But I am most certainly concerned with the surface hoar that's maybe half a meter down underneath that 21 to 24 storm. And I'm definitely concerned about the deep slab. But we're really trying to avoid the surface hoar. So, yeah, so what's our problem? Where's our problem? How sensitive is it? We're not exactly sure. So what are we going to do? We're going to play the terrain game. Okay, so there's our terrain. And so Fitz and Trevor and one other fella, we come up the shoulder here, and we come all the way over to the left barrel. And for some reason, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of pushy, but I get to go first. And actually, someone else goes first, and we regroup over here in the trees at this rollover, and then I get to go first. And so I remember coming down this left barrel thinking, should I really be here? I measured it at 34 degrees. I come out here, come all the way down here, and I cut way over here to a tree right about there, and then I wait for my boys to come by me one at a time. And so they come by me, and Trevor and our other fella are like, I gotta go. And Fitz and I make our way over to the ridge and go back up again. And as we go back up again, we're thinking, sun's come around the corner. It's starting to warm up a little bit. That top slab is warming. And as I'm sure you all know, as top slabs start to warm, they start to move and settle. And we're like, our second run, let's keep it even tighter. And so our second run, we kept it way tighter in the trees over here. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, but meanwhile, there's another party up here, and they've done one run over here, come back over, and then come back up. One of the people in the party, little do we know, after Fitz and I had done our second run, we go off here in the trees, in the glades, and we're making our way down. And as we're making our way down, Fitz says to me, hey, look, there's a moose. And I can't see the damn moose. And I stop, and I'm looking. And while I'm looking for the moose, we kind of hear this huge crack above us. And the next thing we feel is, God, I'm shaking as I'm trying to tell you guys this story. We see this range of this series of powder clouds make their way down the poop chute. And we're like, oh, shit. And it turns out that one of the fellows had come down, and he was trying to make what he thought was some wind slab go right about there. Maybe it was a little higher up. I'm not exactly sure. And he was able to trigger that deep slab problem. And you can see it propagated all the way to there, and it propagated it would be impossible for me to get a full picture all the way down this south ridge. And so Fitz and I, we rush down to the exit here, which is also the exit from Coal Creek. We wait for the gully to fill up with the debris. We kind of won the race with the debris. We put our beacons into search, and we do a side-by-side search of the debris. While I'm waiting, we call 911. Luckily, this is where luck really falls in. Luckily, there was nobody in there. And so Fitz and I, we go back to Trevor's house. We have us a little drink of medicinal whiskey at noon o'clock in the afternoon, and we proceed to do about a 6-month debrief. And so that leads me to the whole topic of debriefing. I've probably used up half my time already, but let me go into some thoughts about debriefing, and I'll finish with some debrief thoughts from our particular avalanche. So I've always used in my classes Oh geez, no wonder there's a back button. I've always used this. Did we make good decisions or did we get away with it? And I love that. I think it's super funny and it makes you laugh and it makes you step back from yourself and have a little look. But I think it's really hard to objectify. And so I moved on. And I moved on to using something I used at Knowles, and it's what, so what, and now what. And so it's what happened, but in a nod to Dale, not just asking what, it's so what? What does this mean? And another way to look at that is why. Okay? And then I think this is a really important part is what does this mean? And how are we going to take this into planning our next day? So I really like this one because it's kind of easy to remember, right? So feel free to use that if it appeals to you. AAI then took, did we make good decisions or get away with it? They took that and they objectified it a little bit into, did you make any bad decisions today? And that certainly takes self-awareness, doesn't it? Okay. But then they start looking at, and this is what I really like, the specifics. Did you manage the terrain well? Improvements? And this is one I really like that I really like to use after we've skied something. Are these the safe zones that I would use if I were to ski this again? My students are always amazed, like, you're not sure? I'm like, no, I want to make different decisions based on my different avalanche problems. It's like, no, I still, even though I have a certain level of expertise, I want to question myself. I want you to question me. So yeah, did we manage the terrain well? And so these are great questions. I love that these are on the AAI checklist, okay? I was putting together an issue of the Avalanche Review for last February, and I decided to do it on debriefing after last Wysaw. There was a lot of clamor for this. And my friend John Canningater, he presented me with this whole after-action review. And I really like it. It's 4 questions, and it starts with what did we intend to do? And so that implies that you actually planned your day out. Okay? And then how did we execute relative to this strategy? Okay? And so this is also doubling down on Dale's point. Why did it happen that way? What's the difference between your strategy and your execution? And so then, how are you going to then adapt it? And so that's really the thing to take home. And I think it's like Ed LaChapelle's ascending spiral, is that we build on our successes or our lack of successes. Okay, and that today's debrief leads into tomorrow's briefing. So the after-action review. And so tips for this is it keeps the conversation objective, keeps you concise, do it in a timely fashion. Leaders set an example. Canningater told me, he says, I actually do this with my wife, even after we do a shopping trip or we, it keeps us in practice. I'm not sure I'm recommending that, but if you know Canningater, I can see like a big grin on his face as he does this. So the AAR. Okay. And then here's some airy debrief questions, and they're real similar to what we've been seeing, what we've been talking about. I like that they get a little bit more specific. Where could we have triggered a slide? And so you're seeing planning, actuality and strategy, execution, and then bringing that into the plan. Once again, an ascending spiral. Great scheme, great scheme. They're all good, okay? And so this is the cover from that February Avalanche Review. We should have it back up online pretty soon, issue 36.3. And so, are we good or just lucky? And I get kind of pissy about the whole lucky thing. People say, oh, you were so lucky. I'm like, well, for the most part, I really think that you make your own luck. Sure, sometimes you just get lucky, but you make your own luck by being prepared, by being nimble. Oh, plan A doesn't work. Let's go to plan B. Let's end up with plan Z. But it means, like Terry's talking about, that you're looking at a bunch of different doors. You're looking at different options. And you're paying attention, you're humble, you're honest, but sometimes you're just lucky. And we're lucky, Fitz and I were lucky that day because we stopped to look for the moose, and that way we weren't down in the gut below the south face of Taylor when the thing went big. Yeah, pretty happy about that. Okay, here's another debrief question. And I put this in here because I know that I'm using it, and I know that a lot of professional forecasting outfits are using this as part of their morning meeting. What's our mindset for the day? Was it the appropriate mindset is your debrief question. And did our behavior actually match the selected mindset? Yeah, you might choose a mindset, but then you behave completely differently. I've never done that. Right? And so this is one kind of a nod to Terry's presentation. And so this is a question that we can ask is, what was our emotional landscape for the day? What were the patterns that we brought? What were the emotional baggages? Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. What emotions did we bring to the day? It's worth asking. Okay, and so here's some ways to make your debriefing worthy. And I cannot underline this enough, is pick a system, use it, refine it, work on your system. I asked Ian McCammon about this one time, and Ian McCammon said to me, well, Lynn, there's no silver bullet for the human factors, but here's a tip. Cognitive work analysis, which means looking at your system, leads to system optimization. So I'm like, oh, Ian, you're giving me some homework, aren't you? But what it means is you don't just pick a system and use it. You pick a system, you use it, and then you say, did that system work the way I wanted it to? Okay, and so you incorporate those insights into the plan and change your system as necessary. Tips, write down your lessons, Use a field book, use an Excel spreadsheet, write an article for me at the Avalanche Review. How about that? Okay. And so as you're doing this research, I really want you to expand your understanding of conditions and decision making. And so read case studies, read the snowy torrents, read the accidents on avalanche.org that you were asking about. Read the Avalanche Review. And boy, I could spend a whole nother presentation on this point, being honest about your biases and your vulnerabilities. And one takeaway here is human factors is not necessarily a pejorative. It's not a bad thing to have emotions. You know, it's what you do with it. Okay? Oh, yeah. A couple minutes here. Okay. And so I saw, I saw this in the latest backcountry. And so this is also talking about storytelling. The way we heal is through storytelling. So telling our story and having people listen to your story. But you also have people that you trust, mentors, sages, who don't just listen to your story, but they ask really good questions, because you can get stuck in your circle. And you have somebody that needs to say, hey, the emperor has no clothes here. You need to get bumped into, let's just ask how many of the Alp truths were present in your situation. All right, so 2020 hindsight isn't always 2020. You don't always get the right feedback. So you get nothing bad happened. And this has already been touched on a little bit today. You get this normalization of deviance because the snow is a wicked learning environment. You don't always get clean feedback. Okay, so seek out mentors and sages to give you that Zen smackdown. Use the after-action review and review your conclusions over time. Right, Connor? review your conclusions over time. Okay, and so the question I've really liked to use lately is, where were we the most vulnerable, and how did we manage our vulnerabilities? That's the one I've liked of all the debrief questions. And so I'll spin through that, some of the debris from that avalanche. So I wrote an article for the Avalanche Review. It's in 30-4, April 2012. And so my specific lessons: don't trust a deep persistent slab problem. When stability is the answer, is the question, terrain's the answer. And leave plenty of margin, because there's so much uncertainty out there. Pay attention to who's above and below you. And thanks, Fitz. Travel with solid partners who insist on consistent protocols. Okay, so here's a quote that came to me from Carl Birkeland. You guys can read this, but it's about finding the line. And sometimes you have to go over the line in order to see the line. And so the thing that helped me is hearing that other people have gone over the line as well. Guys got that? Okay. And so here's my final thoughts, is be a lifelong learner, and that your lessons and messages will change over time. What you think and feel initially might be different than 6 months, a year, 5 years down the road. Okay? And so have a sense of humor. And then the really bottom line is to own your shit. Now, I'm not sure that day up on Taylor that I really should have gone into that left barrel. I think I was over the line. So, and I own that. We got away with that one. We all got away with that one. So, that's what I got. I don't think there's a lot of room for questions, but if anybody's got one question, I'll take a question. 3, 2, 1. How'd the moose? Oh, the moose was fine. The moose was well in the glades. I finally saw the moose. Duh. Great, thanks you guys.